Hello and welcome back to the Spotlight Sessions, the podcast from AMP Talent Group, where we chat with the people who power the entertainment industry. I'm your host, Rosie Ferguson. I'm happy you're here. So far in this series, we have heard from influential people behind the scenes. But today, we're speaking to someone who has made a tremendous impact in front of the camera. With over 25 years as a national host on the Weather Network, Kim MacDonald has captivated audiences across Canada with her warm and authentic delivery, and she showed us what remarkable resilience looks like in her battle with breast cancer. She joins us now from the Weather Network's headquarters in Oakville. Welcome, Kim. It is so nice to see you, and thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, Rosie, it is my pleasure. My pleasure. I was so excited that you invited me to chat with you because you are honestly one of my favorite people in the world. So wow. I'm just honored to be here.
Kim, that's so lovely. And likewise. And, I first met Kim when I started my career in media at the Weather Network. And I don't think I ever told you this, Kim. I was telling our producer, Mike, this the other day. When I first started, you were one of the first people I ever met. And you were one of the first people I learned how to be a presenter from. And I remember thinking, and I still think this to this day, I thought it through my years working radio, hosting events. I just want to be the way I am in front of the camera, the way I am off the camera, which is exactly how you always were. And it was amazing and it was effortless and nobody else is like that. And that was one of the first things I noticed about Kim all those many years ago. She is so awesome.
Oh, gee. Thank you. Oh my gosh, that's so flattering. It's a hard thing to teach people. I try to do it when new people come in. I'm used as a mentor, and I always say there's too many other things to think about. Don't change who you are. That's the easy part. Just stay who you are. You have all these other things to think about, like when it comes to the weather, for example, so many things to keep straight in your head, that if you then try to take on a persona that's not you, it's an added layer that'll just make things more difficult. So just be who you are. I always say be who you are, but 10% better on TV.
Exactly. And you guys listening, you can't see this, but I can see Kim's face right now. And as she's saying all those amazing words, she's smiling. And that is one thing that was always special about you. You were always smiling. You were smiling when you were having conversations about the weather with Canadians. You were smiling when you were having interviews with people. You were smiling. But then when you step off camera, it's the same. You're this amazing, smiling, wonderful person. And then the red light goes on. And Kim is still Kim. You are always so authentic. And I remember thinking, if nothing else, that is what I want to be. And I was very lucky to have you also early on, and as so many other people were, because yes, at the Weather Network, Kim certainly is one of the people and they're smart to do this. She mentors and she teaches, and she's absolutely terrific. So let's talk more about you as a broadcaster.
I want to talk about you.
Well, that's, I thought about that. I was chatting with Mike about it, and I thought, I don't think I've ever told that to Kim. So I think this is a perfect opportunity to tell her. So thank you for that.
Well, I love that. Thank you.
Share with us. Tell us how it all started for Kim MacDonald. How did you get into broadcasting? Was it something you always wanted to do?
It was not something I had always wanted to do, but it was something I quickly learned that was my only skill. I remember Barbara Walters saying that. She was like, I'm not good at anything else except for what I do. And I feel like I am the same way. Do not ask me to be crafty or, keep a plant alive. But you know what? I can do broadcasting. So when I was a kid, I was I was a fairly smart kid. I was not athletic at all. Uh-huh. I was a geeky little nerd. And I found out that I could do public speaking.
Right.
And we had something called the Speech Arts Festival, where I grew up in St. Catharines, and you would go up on a stage and you would maybe recite a poem. So it would be the same poem, 10 kids getting up and doing the same poem. And I would win this thing, and I wouldn't win anything. So I would get up, and then, I remember when I was like 10 or 11, I'd go up and there'd be 20 kids, and I would, do my little poem. and I would win first place.
You crushed it. You crushed it. Crushed the competition.
It was the only ribbon I could ever win. I was a participant in everything else. But I was thinking, okay, so I have this skill where I can actually speak, and I could do a speech in front of a class, and it wasn't a problem. I'm not saying I wasn't nervous, because I was.
Yeah.
I was very nervous, but I could still do it. And then I remember in high school, we had this, I think I was grade 11 or 12, and the science teacher, who I guess didn't really want to teach a lot, would get us to read out of the textbook aloud.
Okay.
And it soon came to the point where he would only call me to speak, to read. And he'd say, okay, open your textbooks. And then everyone would go, Kim, say my name simultaneously, because they knew that's what he was going to say. And It was really funny. And none of these things really, it didn't really occur to me at the time that this was, that this could lead me into a broadcasting career. Sure. So as a kid, this is where I think it's coming from. Plus all the, the shows we put on for our parents' friends when we were kids. Let's dress up and sing and dance and make up plays. And my dad would play the guitar and call me out for a party and sing with daddy. And so I was doing a lot of these little kind of performance things as a kid. But when I went to school, I thought I was going to be a teacher.
Oh, okay.
And I kind of am a teacher in a way as well.
Very much so.
My mom was a teacher and my dad was a principal. So having that and only being in school my whole life, I didn't know that there were other jobs.
For sure. And it's funny just listening to you talk about how that was what you like to do. You would effortlessly perform. One thing I want to tell people, and I'm always amazed, even at the time that I was at the Weather Network and then afterwards, people don't realize that when you are on air at the Weather Network, there's no script. There's no, except for the news, the newscast, the odd thing. For the most part, you're standing in front of that camera, you're standing in front of that key wall, the green screen with the weather maps behind you, and there's nothing. You're just talking. And I'm always amazed that people don't know that. It's like, well, who do you think's writing that? Who would write all that? Like that's a lot of stuff to write. I'm like, no, these broadcasters are completely unscripted. They get all that weather changes every day, so they're getting all that knowledge from the meteorologist. They're absorbing it. They're succinctly packing it up in their heads, and then they're delivering it across Canada to different geographical parts of the country, depending on where the active weather is. And that is something that you have always made look so effortless, and that's there's no script, guys. It's just completely ad lib. So do you feel just very natural when it comes to ad lib and improvisation?
I think I got there from being in radio first. So starting in radio, I was the news person in radio, so of course I would read the news.
So where did you work in radio before? Tell us about your career before.
I was initially at a tiny little station in Welland, a country station called CHOW, and I was still in college, and they needed somebody, and I was doing the morning show, then I was doing the afternoon show, then I was doing both because it was a small radio station, and then we want you to co-host the morning show, we want you to do news, so I was just doing everything.
Yeah.
But 6 months in, I got the job at 97.7 Hits FM in St. Catharines, which is a much bigger station, and 610 CKTB, which is the talk radio station. So I was on the FM and the AM, top of the hour. I would go to the AM station, read the news. Bottom of the hour, I'd go to the FM. And then at 20 after and 22, I'd sit in with the guys, the morning show guys. And I would joke and laugh, and they would do contests, and I would just be a part of the morning show. But one of the talk radio show hosts, the morning show host on the AM side, said to me, you know what, for our first news of the day, 5:30 in the morning, let's just talk about the news. Don't read it. And I was going to have a heart attack. I'm like, what do you mean? Yeah. He's like, let's just riff on the news. Just tell me what the big stories are. And what a change maker that was. I mean, that was the thing that got me to ad lib about the news. And it was hard at first, but the more I did it, the better I got at it. And then by the time I got to the Weather Network, I was 5 years in broadcasting, and I could just talk. So there we are.
Well, I remember. I think it was after the Weather Network has been in a couple of places, and for years, Kim and I worked at the studio that was in Mississauga. Then it moved to this big, beautiful building where it is now in Oakville. And I think when we were in the process of moving, we were digging up all these tapes and stuff. And Kim, I remember you had your audition tape, because we all like keep our audition tapes. You had your audition tape on a VHS machine, and the program director at the time, I can't remember who it was, but he popped it in. He's like, let's watch Kim's audition tape. And then we were all like, how is your audition tape so good? Because you had
Was it my audition tape or was it my first day on air tape? I remember I had a VHS of my first day on air, and if there is something with my audition on it, I want to see it.
It was something. It was something from the beginning, like the very new, something very new, and
yes.
We were all like, "How was she so good?" Like right away, because there were no there were no ahs, there was no hesitation. Like you just were so natural, and again, you know, there's no script. This is you taking all this information. But what an interesting exercise that morning show person had you do. And I wonder if that is a good thing for someone who's wanting to, you know, get into broadcasting and not have to rely so heavily on a script. I would say that would be probably a really good exercise. Okay, tell me, let's just talk about it. Talk about these news stories. Talk about these weather stories. That's really interesting that it changed everything for you.
And then you really have to understand what you're reading. You can't just write a piece and then go on the air and read it and not know what you're talking about. Yep. And in weather, that's the deal. You really have to understand your subject matter in order to ad lib about it. 100%. And that's just how it went. And in those early days, Rosie, we were live on the air for 3 hours and 40 minutes every hit. Now everything is recorded, so we don't have to have that skill set like we did, unless there's severe weather where we'll live stream. But in those days, you got good pretty quickly because it was day after day of live scriptless television.
Yes. It's a marathon. You really have to stay hydrated.
And with comfortable shoes.
In front of that key wall. Oh my goodness. It really is a unique and cool and remarkable thing to work at the Weather Network. I feel so lucky to have been there as long as I did and meet amazing people like you. So Kim, throughout your career, you have had, you are OG, you have interviewed everybody. You've talked to astronauts, you've talked to Olympians, you've talked to so many interesting Canadians that have their own weather stories. So tell us, can you share any memorable encounters or experiences that really left a lasting impact on you?
Oh, yes. Especially since I do this new feature called Candid Close-Up, where I can interview regular Canadians who like to contribute to the Weather Network. So they'll do a video or a photo and they'll send it to the Weather Network. So it was about turning the camera back on them a little bit. Who is this person who loves whatever so much? New Brunswick, Alberta, Northwest Territories. So there's a couple. One woman, Anne-Marie Stevens, she was my very first subject for Candid Close-Up. I put it out there on Facebook. She goes, I'll do it. And I'm like, okay, right. This is great. This woman sends in her stuff every day. So she goes down to Lake Erie. She lives in Port Stanley, right by the beach. She goes down and she gets her camera out every morning and she tapes the sunrise. Videos the sunrise, I should say. Nobody tapes anything. So she videos the sunrise every single morning. And I said to her, everybody loves a nice sunrise, but not everybody gets up every single day to do this. And not knowing, honestly, Rosie, I knew nothing about this woman.
Yeah.
I said, why do you do it? And she said, I had 5 boys. My youngest son, Joey, died when he was 1 year old of a rare condition. And she said that being close to the water was like being close to heaven. And being there at sunrise was like being close to my baby. And so I never miss a day.
Oh my gosh.
And I did not expect that.
No.
And I was so privileged that she shared it with me.
Of course.
And then when I shared her story, she got so much positive feedback, like so many beautiful messages. And it was, I just felt like that I was a little bit of a conduit for her. But also I've had so many interviews where people surprised me, and it really taught me that everybody has a story. There's a woman, Lorraine Perrow from Toronto. This is also sad. I'm sorry to be, sad, but it's just touching.
Yeah, but it's strength. It's empowering too, right?
So she had pancreatic cancer, and she was a professional photographer. So she had she had photos published in Time magazine and Maclean's magazine, and she told me that COVID was really difficult for her. So she's not working anymore. She can't work in groups. Yeah. Then she got sick. She didn't know she had pancreatic cancer because of COVID. She didn't go to the hospital right away. So it had really advanced without her knowing. And here she was talking to me, just this big smile, this sweet woman. And for the Weather Network, she would go out and she would put the camera on herself and she would call it the silly hat weather forecast because she was bald after chemo. She'd wear a funny, cute hat. Yeah. And she's like, this is your silly hat weather forecast. And here I am in Toronto and the sun is shining. So I said, why did you do that? And then she said, well, sharing this stuff with people online built a community. She said, so many people would look at my stuff and like my photos and comment on them. And then, and then I got to share her story. So this woman who was, quite lonely, who had once been on the top of the world with her profession, I was just so touched by her. And sadly, she's gone now, but I just felt this, again, privilege to have talked to her and to have shared her story and to have other people give her such positive feedback as a result.
Oh, my heart.
I know. It's hard.
But I love what you said about being a conduit, because there's so many stories out there. There's so many people living through things. And I think when we live through things that are difficult and that are challenging, of course, you feel alone. You feel like maybe I'm the only person doing this. But then when someone like you has that platform and then is able to be that conduit and to share it, to be flooded with all that love, I think would be the best feeling in the world.
Yeah. So it was just, I felt like remarkable. It was a small thing to do and didn't do it intentionally. I wanted to do a piece on somebody who took photos, and then suddenly it turns into something completely different. There was a woman who had a photographic memory, she told me. Wow. So she memorized this book of birds, basically. Every single bird, every sound it made, every look, and her and her partner, they would go out to national parks and she would know every bird, like everything that was nearby. And I said, I went into this going, wow, this couple takes really great pictures of wildlife and birds and owls. I have no idea that this woman she came from South America. Yeah. She learned English and then had a photographic memory. So this is the kind of thing I'm saying. Canadians have great stories, and you don't have to be famous and you don't have to be in the spotlight. I don't know. There hasn't been one person I've spoken to who didn't have something interesting in their back pocket that I was blown away by.
In Kim's Instagram, and I'll give all her handles later so you guys can follow her and find her. This is something I always love about Kim. You have a quote from very, very lovely Crowded House song, and it was actually, maybe listen to Crowded House. Everywhere you go, always take the weather with you, from that great song Weather With You. And I love that because it's true, right? We all Canadians, we love to talk about the weather, and we all have stories. And I think that being in that, working there and having that lovely authentic ability you have to connect with people, you're going to get a lot of wonderful stories and a lot of people sharing a lot of cool stuff with you. So it's pretty amazing.
Yes. And, it's funny because I have these, Canadians telling me extraordinary stories, and I have extraordinary Canadians like Haley Wickenheiser telling me her best weather story, being stuck on the side of the road with her dad because they couldn't make it back from a tournament because there was a blizzard in Saskatchewan, and she's just regaling me with these great weather stories. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, everybody's got one. So
everybody has one. Oh my goodness.
The glue that keeps Canadians together.
Well, okay, so let's talk a bit about the industry, the entertainment industry. So, whether we're working in media and film, TV, entertainment. There's obviously challenges and obstacles on that path to success. Can you share with our listeners who, you know, a lot of people listening that are, let's face it, they are trying to make it. They are trying to get there in entertainment. Have you ever had a moment where you had to overcome something tough and kind of just make your own path, figure it out? Something that was hard?
Yeah, I mean, I've had it pretty easy. I'm not gonna lie, Rosie, but in the early days, I wanted to, when I decided that I wanted to be in radio, that's what I wanted to start with, radio and television. I'd gone to university for communications, and I went to get a job at a radio station that I had worked for, Hits FM, that I had worked for one summer in the, in the PR department. But anyway, that's a whole other story. But anyway, so I went back because I wanted to do the news, and he's like, well, do you know how to do this, this, and this? Like all the practical things that you would need. Do you know how to splice tape? Things like that happened in the
hey, we did it
in the before times. Yeah, so
that in school, yeah. Can you
And
imagine?
I didn't learn any of that because I didn't go to school for that. I had a communications degree, so I said, okay, goodbye, and I went back to school, and I went to Niagara College to learn about radio and television and how to do all the things. And then I remember, so that's, a small thing, and it worked. I got some practical experience, and I came back. But when I started in radio at this little country music station, they didn't have BN, so they didn't have a news source at all. So they couldn't afford to pay one. So here I am doing the news. I'm literally ripping news stories out of the newspaper in the morning.
Oh my gosh.
There was one morning I had to be on the air live, and I didn't have enough stories, so I'm just ripping out the paper. I don't know how I did it, but for some reason, it was a small enough station that nobody called us out on it, but it was pretty funny because the news director would find stories. He would listen to other radio stations, and he goes, listen to this station in St. Catharines and write down all the top news stories, and then basically type them out and then read them yourself. And I'm like, all right, sounds like a plan.
You're like, I got to do what I have to do, and that's what I'm going to do.
Honestly, barefoot both ways uphill in the snow, Rosie. That's what it was like in those early days in the early 90s. But things got a lot easier along the way.
So I want to remind everyone here. So Kim is a 7-time winner, and I really need to ask you about this because I just think it's so cool. She is a 7-time winner of the Toronto Sun's Reader's Choice Award for favorite weather personality. First of all, has anyone else ever been nominated that much? You're just so beloved. What does it feel like every year when you win that? I just love it.
I don't even think they have it anymore, but it was so great.
It was so awesome.
It's hilarious. The first year I won, so I won silver for I think about 4 years in a row, and then I won gold for like 3 years.
Yes.
Or the opposite, something like that.
Yes.
But the first year I won, I didn't know I was even nominated. I didn't know I was in it. I didn't know anything. I had no idea. And somebody, Sangeeta Patel, I don't know if you know her.
Yeah, of course.
Yes, but she's an OG Weather Network person. I don't know if a lot of people know that. But big celeb now. Yeah. So anyway, so she writes on my Facebook page, congratulations on the Toronto Sun win. And I said, and I was like, I don't know what she's talking about. And then I looked around online, couldn't find anything, didn't know what she was talking about. And I said to her, I think you might have written on the wrong person's Facebook wall. And she's like,
ma'am, this is Kim MacDonald's Facebook page.
It's you. So then my husband was working at Sun TV at the time. And I call him and I said, can you look around to see if there's a newspaper hanging around and see if I won this thing. And so sure enough, that's what happened. Anyway,
Victory!
It was pretty funny. And yeah, I
always have been so proud of you. I love it. It's just fabulous.
I always feel like I'm just representing the Weather Network. When I'm nominated for those, I'm always the only person from here. So I think, it's just shout out to TWN and the team here and the great people on the air here and the people behind the scenes.
100%.
And I'm just a face, and I love that award. I think it's really great because it's coming from the people. But
exactly.
at the same time, I don't put a lot of stock in myself, and that I feel like it's all of us.
For sure. And it's true. The Weather Network, it's such an incredible place to work. And a lot of the faces you see on Canadian television and a lot of the voices you hear on radio and in, everywhere, all the platforms. It's amazing. I'm glad you brought up Sakita Patel. So many people got their start there. So many people started from the Weather Network. And that's the very cool thing about working there, is that you just tend to know everybody in media, because so many people have a start there. It's a very supportive place to work, that's for sure. And let's switch gears and talk about a time when you obviously needed that support. You had your life profoundly impacted, your family's life, everyone that loves you, by your breast cancer journey. So in December of 2016, Kim received a diagnosis of stage 2B invasive ductal carcinoma. So that was from your oncologist. You had a breast cancer diagnosis, and you found out you had a tumor that would require chemotherapy to shrink. So can you tell us about that? How did that affect you personally, professionally? It must have just rocked your life.
Well, yeah, it was probably the biggest life-changing event for me, the way I think about things moving forward. It had a tremendous impact on me, negative and positive.
Okay.
No one thing I think in life is all negative or all positive. So this is one of those things. I mean, someone asked me before, if I had the choice, would I have never had it happen? Or, do you prefer your life now versus your life before breast cancer, which is kind of two different things.
Sure.
But anyway.
Yeah.
So a lot of the best things in my life have happened because of it, which is a really weird thing. And then a lot of obviously brutal things happened as a result of it as well. So yes, when I was diagnosed, it changed everything. I had to come to a screeching halt. Yeah. My life seemed to be going along really nicely at the time. Everything was smooth, but that never happens for long in our life, right?
Sure.
Everybody gets a curveball. That was my curveball right to the head. And it taught me a lot. It taught me a lot about myself, but it taught me a lot about the people I've surrounded myself with.
I bet. Yeah.
And if I'm going to take credit for anything, it's the people that are in my life. Like, I feel like you can attract the people to you. And if that's saying something, I've attracted some pretty incredible people to me. And, in my darkest moments, there was always someone to lift me up. But obviously I couldn't work. And I didn't want to work. I was like, sure. I can't work with this head, this bald head. I'm not, and physically it's extremely tough.
Yeah.
I don't know what you want me to tell you about this. So I had I had chemo, I had radiation, 25 rounds of radiation. I've had more than 65 needles. I've had a double mastectomy. And I had a full recovery. I am completely cancer-free. Yep. It's been 6 years, and that's the good news. The good news is that the treatment worked, that research matters, and that I'm alive to talk about it today.
Oh, you made it, and it's so wonderful. And Kim, you're in the public eye, as you said. You couldn't work, and then you made a really brave decision, I think, and I'm not sure everybody would have the strength to do this, but you decided to document your journey with cancer on your blog. And Kim's blog, you're really frank, and the photos are really frank, and you talk about surrounding yourself with the best people. There's this beautiful photo of you with your two daughters, and you're obviously going through the chemo, and your two beautiful daughters are by your side, and you can just see them holding up mom. Like, you can just see in your daughters' faces, Mom, we got you. Like, we got you. And you're beaming, because you're always beaming, but you're going through hell. Like, you're going through hell. And so you made that decision. You did your cancer journey on your blog. How did that help you cope? And what kind of feedback did you get? Did you find yourself just like crushed with a lot of support? What was it like to put it out there and then because people know you, all of Canada knows you, and they're seeing you go through this.
Yeah, I didn't want to just disappear. And I thought, like we've been talking about, when you have a platform, you should use it. And what I thought was, you know what, I know people who have had breast cancer. My mother-in-law died from breast cancer, and I thought, but I still don't really know about it. Like, I really don't know what it feels like or what it, what goes through your head. So maybe if I talk about it, document it, it'll be like a journal for me, and other people, if they want to learn about breast cancer, can learn about it. And one of the first things I did after I pronounced on Facebook that I had breast cancer, and I got this overwhelming response from people. People who've watched me for years, who've never spoken to me on Facebook, were telling me what I meant to them. And I was like, oh my goodness, I was so shocked. Someone's like, I was up all night, with my baby when she was first born, and I would watch you, and you kept me company. And someone said, when I was in the hospital, I was watching the Weather Network, and you kept me company. And they felt like I was their friend. So then I shaved my head live on Facebook, and I'd never done like anything like that. And I didn't know if I was going to do it. I was kind of afraid. I didn't shave it myself. My hairdresser, my beautiful friend Andrea, shaved it for me. And okay, so of course it was, I got a ton of response and support from that. But what I didn't expect, Rosie, was the people who told me that I was helping them. And I'm going to cry when I think about it. But a mother said to me and my 3 children, she had twins, and they're all around, 10 and 9. And she said, we watched your video, so my kids will be ready for when I have to shave my head, because she had breast cancer. And another woman said, my breast cancer has just returned, and I'm so upset that I have to lose my hair again. But after watching your video, I'm ready to do it. And my daughter's going to do it tomorrow on New Year's Day, because I did mine on New Year's Eve, because I have a flair for the dramatic.
Never.
And then, Rosie, everything kind of changed, because when I was I didn't expect that I was going to help other people. I thought, okay, this will help me.
Yeah.
But then I'm like, okay, there's a reason for this shit. I have a purpose, and that I didn't know that I was going to have. I was doing a radio show every week as well, and so I was blogging. I was appearing on this radio show via phone. I wasn't going anywhere.
Yeah.
And I just talked about it, like a little bit like a therapy session. And this man wrote in, who was a truck driver, who listened to this, Kim Has Cancer was the name of the very subtle
to the point
talk show. And he said that his father had died from cancer, but his dad was so stoic that he didn't really know what he went through. And listening to me was helping him find closure with the relationship he had with his father. And I mean, this was the kind of thing that was really blowing my mind and honestly helping me. It was
and giving
helping
you
me
strength too. Like, I imagine you were drawing strength from that too, because something that you so difficult you're putting out there, it's like twofold. You see other people are going through stuff too, but then what you're offering them is helping. So I imagine that is going to be filling you up with a lot of comfort as well. That's amazing.
It was. And I always think, share your story. If it was just my husband and my daughters, or a close friend who I was confiding everything in, and they were doing all the heavy lifting, trying to support me, it's too much. It's too much for one person or 2 people. But this way, there's like many people, it's much lighter, One person would text me one day, a different person might send me flowers, and everybody's doing one little thing for me, and it's so much to me, but it's little to them, and I think I'm not putting all this burden on the people closest to me. I mean, it was already hard enough for them, but I can't imagine if I was quiet and nobody else was helping,
Whoa, 100%, 100%. And I don't think I'm ever now gonna forget that story you just told of that woman saying her daughters, it's showing that video to help prepare them. Like, that's wow. Like, I think as long as I live, I'll never forget that. Like, that's a really, really amazing thing to be able to help a mom get her daughter something. Because
of course I was smiling through the whole thing, as you know, as you can only imagine.
The kids smile. Well, can we talk about a photo of you smiling that every time I see it? So I'm actually looking at it right now. It's on your Instagram, and it was also on a billboard in Young Dundas Square during Breast Cancer Awareness Month. And you can see it on Kim's Instagram. It's also, if you didn't see it during the breast cancer campaign, This photo is so beautiful. It gives me goosebumps. I have all the feelings every time I look at it. The first time I saw it, I was literally speechless. And what it is it's Kim with a stunning sunflower tattoo across her chest. It's your mastectomy tattoo. And you said, once I got the tattoo, it changed everything about how I felt about myself. It is so unbelievably beautiful. And I have a very close friend right now who is going through cancer, and I showed her that, and she couldn't even speak. She couldn't even speak when she saw the photo of you with your tattoo, because it gave her such unbelievable hope that she could feel beauty and confidence again. So what was the reaction to that?
That's exactly what I wanted it to be, because I saw photos like that when I was going through treatment, and it gave me hope. Yeah. So I thought, you know what? Let's show it. Let's show it. Let's show other women what's possible, that they don't have to have reconstruction if they don't want it. They don't have to just live with the scars if they don't want to. Yeah. Everybody has a choice. But I just got this mastectomy tattoo 5 years after my mastectomy, and I'd learned to live with how I looked, which was fine. I could accept my new body as it was. But that tattoo made me feel sexy and beautiful and strong. And I love it. I love looking at my chest with a big ass sunflower tattoo on it. You know,
it's so badass. It's so beautiful and badass. And you know, at the end of my street on the corner, there's a tattoo studio, and I walk by there all the time with my sons, and they have like this traveling tattoo truck, and they're big windows, and they're always tattooing. And these guys are like, you know, like kind of like they're there's a lot of tattooists there, and they're covered, like it's just covered in tattoos. But I will tell you one thing: they said there is no more badass tattoo than they have ever seen than yours. So
no.
Big time.
I can tell you it was very painful. I'm not going to pretend that this thing did not hurt.
Of course, getting a tattoo hurts. Yeah,
it was very painful, but oh my gosh, worth it.
Worth it.
Shout out to Atomic Cherry Tattoo in Burlington.
Amazing. Atomic Cherry Tattoo in Burlington did the beautiful, beautiful work on Kim. So Kim, so now it's amazing because you are recovered, you are back at work, Canadians get you back in their living rooms and phones and wherever everybody's watching you. So how now do you balance your personal and your professional life, especially everything you have been through, and then also in the fact that you work in media, you have a family, you're in the public eye, it's a lot. So tell us a little bit about how you are maintaining that sense of balance and also prioritizing your well-being, making sure you're all good.
Yes. Well, my kids are grown now, so that's the good news. My youngest is 20 years old. I know you'll find that hard to believe, Rosie.
Kim, oh my gosh.
You were my call when I was in labor. I had to call Rosie because you were our program coordinator, and I was not going to come into work because I was going to be going and having a baby. So
I will never forget.
So funny.
To
Hi, Rosie.
Day,
what did I say to you?
I will never, ever, ever forget this, because only it was your husband. 3 a.m. he called. I answered the phone, and I'm like, hello, and I'm waiting for the call that Kim has going into labor and to snap into action to put everything in place. So I answer the phone, and it's your hubby, and he's like, hey, what are you doing?
Okay, he called. I don't even remember. See, there we go.
But then I think you took the phone from him. So then
did he say, hey, what are you doing? My gosh.
He's like, hey, so funny. What are you doing? It was 3 a.m. and I just
3 a.m. on a Monday
out laughing because he's just, oh my God, he made me laugh so hard. And yeah, we got you. And then to think that was 20 years ago was amazing. Yes. And I remember it like yesterday, and your daughters, oh my God, they're so beautiful. So yeah, but it's nice that they're off doing their thing. And
yes, the youngest one is in college right now. The oldest one is living in the Cayman Islands, so she's gone, and the youngest is at home right now. So I do not have a lot of responsibility as a mother other than to take calls from them, and when they need me, I will come running.
There, of course.
But I think most of my time now is is work and then advocacy, because
Yes.
I'm doing a lot of stuff for Breast Cancer Canada. I've been working with them for 6 years, but now, I'm really getting out there with them. And that's where a lot of my focus is. I split my focus, obviously, hubby, and then work and advocacy. And those are the things that make me happy.
That is amazing. And you travel a lot. You're doing a lot of stuff. I think you were just in the States. I think it was in Chicago. You were at an event. So it's
I was at ASCO, which is the biggest oncology event in the world.
Amazing.
50,000 people, oncologists, researchers, pharmaceutical companies. Yeah, so I went there with Breast Cancer Canada as a patient advocate. And it's just incredible to see the kind of work that's being done and the kind of discoveries that are happening.
Yes.
And just to be a part of it and see these, just be surrounded by these brilliant people who are changing the world. So yeah, I'm really proud to be a small part of it.
Of course, absolutely. Kim, I can't thank you enough for talking to me today and for sharing your story and how you started and all your amazing magical energy. You are simply extraordinary in every way, and I'm so grateful that you were a part of this series. Thank you so much.
Oh my gosh, right back at you. You are honestly one of the most magical people I've ever met. And to hear you say that about me, there's nothing I want more. So thank you.
Thank you, Kim. I've been speaking with Kim MacDonald, national broadcaster at the Weather Network. You can follow her on Twitter at KMacTWN, on Instagram at KMacDonaldTWN, and that's Mac, M-A-C. And you can read about her journey with breast cancer on her blog, which you could find at kmacblog.com. And of course, you can watch her on the Weather Network. Thanks for joining us for another episode of AMP Talent Group's Spotlight Sessions. I'm Rosie Ferguson. We'll see you next time. Bye for now.